Well, welcome everyone to another session of the GeoTop A seminar. And today we are honored to have Professor Maria del Rocío González Díaz from the University of Sevilla, who is an expert and a pioneer in the areas of topological data analysis and in particular its applications to engineering fields. So it's going to be a very interesting talk today, and we're honored to have you in the seminar. Please go ahead, Professor Gonzalez. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning for you there in Mexico and USA and the rest of America. And good afternoon here in Europe. I'm very pleased to be here to give the talk. And thank you very much for the organizer to thinking of me. So this talk is about a work that we did inside an European project. And the name of the project is Reliable and Explainable Swarm Intelligence for People with Reduced Mobility. This is a project with several institutions and enterprises all over Europe. And the aim of the project is to create a trustworthy and sustainable artificial intelligence system across its entire life cycle. And it should include a safety certified artificial intelligence system for autonomous ground and flight robots. Also, we want safe deep learning and monitoring and secure communication between the drones, the wheelchair, and the orchestrator. It's like the big brother of the system. We also plan to obtain green artificial intelligence using topological methods. This is mainly where our group is involved. And also, our group is involved in artificial intelligence for social navigation in robots. This is the one that I am going to, this talk is related more in the last topic. And so the project, the aim of the project is also to show how wheelchairs and drones can collaborate together in indoor places to assist people with reduced mobility. So we have to be very special attention to safety and security, and social navigation is also very important, and collaboration between all the agents of the system. So the project is divided in different work packages, and our team is involved in mainly in work package 6. Also, the name of the package is how to make greener the artificial intelligence solution. There is one task, is task 6.3, with name topology-based optimization of robot fleet behavior. That is the same name as this talk, because we are going to talk about this task precisely. So this work is a collaboration of several people. This Álvaro Torras Casas, he is working at Method Team in Paris, France. Javier Pereira, Victor Toscano, and myself, we are at the University of Seville in Spain. Manuel Soriano Trigueros, he is in ISTA, working in Austria. Jerome Guzzi, he is in Switzerland, and Alberto Carlevaro, Mauricio Mongeli, and Sara Narnetti, that they are in the senior in Italy. So I'm going to now to focus on this task 6.3, and the simulation that we want to do with that, we made all the experiments is made in a simulator platform named NavGround. And NavGround consists of, this is a simulator, so you have agents that could be a wheelchair, could be people, and could be also even real people that using virtual glasses can be inside the scenario. The simulation, we use it to test the efficiency and safety of the behavior designs and also to feed the artificial intelligence system. And very important that all the navigation is made socially aware. The meaning that, for example, you cannot the wheelchair has to not to collision with people, have to avoid people. If two people are talking, then it has to surround them and things like that. Like it's imitating how people work in crowded scenarios. Okay. So each agent at each time gather information about its pose and twist. They have the information about its pose and twist, the position of its nearest neighbors, and also the position of fixed obstacles near them. And when they have all this information, then they execute a command. And this command is processed using an optimization algorithm and also depending on the behavior and the kinematic of the agent. And this command aim to achieve a goal. For example, in this scenario, we have half of the agents that are going up and down, or try to going up and down, and the other half is trying to going from left to right and right to left. So you see, they have to avoid them when they find there is one robot in their trajectory, and this is how the behavior acts. So to compute a simulation run, we fix. So a simulation run is like what we saw here. This the whole process is the simulation run. So we need the scenario, the behavior, the kinematic of the agents, and also the number of agents, the number of simulation steps, the radius of the disks, because it's like we think that robots are disks, is the easiest way to think, and the safety margin if another robot collision with this robot is because it's invading the safety margin. There is an horizontal view to see the neighbors and the obstacle, and after the process for each agent and each simulation step, we obtain a six-dimensional point, the point with the pose and the direction where he's looking at, like, and the velocity and the angular direction. Okay, so we have at the end many six-dimensional points, or points in a six-dimensional space. Okay, so we model the agents using Timio robot because they are very similar to wheelchairs. And we use different scenario like home scenario, cross, and corridor. Home is interesting because we have five in total, five agents, and three agents have to go from their room to the living room. This is like their living room. So they go from the room to the living room and come back. And there are two other agents, these two, that they go in the corridor, along the corridor, go and back, go and back. So there are a lot of narrow space where only one agent can go in, and there are possibly many collision and deadlocks. And cross and corridor, I mentioned before. Okay. So these are the three different kinds of behaviors that we are going to consider: human-like, ORCA, and social port. Remember, the behavior is like an algorithm that each robot have, and is the algorithm that decide the next. It's like it decide the next move, okay, the next movement, the next position, and the next velocity, and everything. So what is the difference between these three behavior? There are some difference I summarized in a table, and here we can see, for example, that human life. I didn't got into detail because everything can be explained mathematically, but it's not so important for the talk. So the thing is that each behavior has a different characteristic. They are not the same, of course. So, for example, human life is very realistic, is imitating how people work in a crowded, well, in a room, in an indoor. And the problem is that it's very costly. Orca is very fast, but the problem is that it's not like human life. It's not like realistic. It's more robotic movements. And social core is especially very well for crowded scenarios. And the problem is that it suffers for a lot of deadlocks. So the robot cannot avoid themselves, and they block together and they stop. They cannot continue working until their objectives. Okay, so what is our main objective in our in this talk and in our work in that 6.3 is to minimize unintended behavior like collisions and deadlock. For example, you see here there is a deadlock, so no, the agent cannot move, and the scenario is very simple. It's just a corridor, but the agent don't know how to solve this problem, and they stay there without doing nothing. This is a deadlock. Okay. So in particular, we have three lines of research. The first one is to improve the navigation of the agent fleet. Improve the navigation is like try to change the behavior so we don't have this problem that I show here. How I can change the behavior a little, the behavior of the agent so they don't stop here and block everything. Okay? So the second one is to generate both safety and efficiency rules. So the idea is that we can know if we select some parameters, the simulation will be safe, or can we explain how the simulation or why the simulation is safe, selecting all the parameters that I mentioned before. And the third one is to characterize the navigation behavior. So imagine we have a robot fleet, agent fleet, and we want to know, looking at the trajectories, which behavior they were selected. So this is important to understand how the behaviors evolve, and maybe to improve the behaviors or detect in advance unintended situation and things like that. So it's important to understand it. Okay, so for the first one, we we used a graph-based behavior modulation. We applied a graph, very basic graph-based, very basic approach using graph to change, as I say, to change a bit the behavior of the robots. For the second one, to generate safety and efficiency rules, we use persistent entropy. And for the third one, to characterize navigation behavior, we use partial matching. Partial matching are matching between intervals or bar in the barcode. So we computed barcode, we will see later how, and then we compute matching between the intervals, and with this matching, we could characterize the behavior of the fleet, robot fleet. Okay, so for the first one, improve the navigation of the agent fleet with a graph-based behavior modulation. This is a very simple idea. The first thing is that, as I said before, each agent can check its neighbors. So it's like it divides the neighbors in three categories. Fixed obstacles that like walls or stuck neighbors, they don't move because the agent can see if the neighbors can move or not, can see their velocity. Same flow neighbors, if they are moving in the same or close direction to the agent that is going to decide the next movement. And opposite flow neighbors are the agent that are moving towards the neighbor we are talking about. For example, we are going to add modulation. So in the real case, we add modulation to all the agents, but we are going to focus, for example, in this agent. Okay, and this one is going to modulate his behavior for us. So first, the agent checks nervy narrows. So this is the first thing that the agent has to do. Narrow regions are regions where only one agent can pass at once at a time. And so the agent has to decide it has to stop or going. Okay, so to decide this, it only check if there is another agent in this narrow region, and if there is one, so he stops. If not, then it goes. This is very simple idea, but with this idea, if we add modulation, then you can observe that they are not deadlocked in this case. And this case is very particular because there are four agents that they start at the same time and they go at the same with the same velocity to the same place. So this can occur, and if it occurs, then there is a deadlock. So if you have modulation, then there is no problem. You don't have deadlocks. Okay. And when there is no, so for example, the agent A check there is no narrow regions, the next step is to compute the following graph. First, we compute the graph of the same flow neighbors around agent A. And we have graph with several connected components, and we take the connected component in which agent A is connected. Okay, so for example, this agent is connected to this one because it's close to this one, and the second is connected to the third one because it's close to this one, but agent A is not connected to this one because it's not close. This is in the middle. Okay, so these three agents are in a platoon. And this is we take the platoon in which A belong. Okay, and then we join this platoon with the fixed obstacle. In this case, the walls. For example, we connected these three robots, these three nodes, with the two walls that they are connected because they are close to the wall. So we have a connected component from one wall to another wall. And clearly, this means that agent A is in a platoon that is blocking a way. So the behavior doesn't take care of this because they can move freely without problem towards. But the modulation takes care of it because if you move in this way, all with the same velocity, then you will have problem with this too. So this is how modulation. This is an example. We have without modulation the behavior. So the five agents have a deadlock. And here, with the modulation, they don't have any problem. They go without any problem across all the code. Okay, so this is another example. This is the home scenario. And this is without modulation. So as you see, sometimes they have like deadlock. And here, some agents have problems. They stay and don't move. But if we apply modulation, then we don't have this problem. So we can see here We did this experiment many times, for example, 20 rooms in this case. And we have with ORCA, with modulation, this is, remember, one of the behavior. Then we have only a few deadlocks. Oh, sorry, this is collision, only a few collisions. But if it is without modulation, then we have much more collisions. And the same happens with deadlocks. Without modulation, there are more rooms without deadlock, and with modulation, there are more runs without deadlocks. And if we don't have modulation, then there are more simulations with deadlocks. So it's like to prove that it works experimentally, of course. There are, this is like some pros, but there are some cons. For example, I don't know if you can see here, the movement with modulation is a bit slowly. This is not a problem because we are working with wheelchairs, so they move slow. But sometimes it's also like some dubitating, or they have some problem to decide which way to go. For example, here, okay. So we have to improve these cases. But apart from this, this work very well. So this is for the first approach. And for the second one, to generate both safety and efficiency rules using persistent entropy. Okay, so there exist methods to obtain probabilistic safety regions, the lack of topology inside, and the idea is the following. We have the navigation playground, for example, NavNow, and we obtain a simulation dataset, a big dataset. With this big dataset, we compute a safety region using different methods, for example, conformal prediction and probabilistic scaling. And with this classifier, we compute local rule extraction. We compute local rules. And then these rules are of the form, these rules are like parameters constraints, okay? And they are obtained from rules like in the form if then. So the thing is that this kind of approach is based on probability and statistics. And we wanted to introduce some kind of topology. So the idea is the following. What we did is to compute simulation runs, and then we build a data set, this is the same, train a classifier, and define safety rule. The main methodology is the same as the other approach. The difference is how to build the dataset. And here is where we introduce topology in the following way. So we first compute simulation rules, generating multiple scenarios with different robot fleet, moving with different behavior or the same with opposite target, and leading with collision and deadlocks, okay? And then what we did is to extract topological feature from each simulation, okay? So this is an example in which, imagine, each point is a robot, and this is a simulation step. So in each simulation step, we compute the Vietory Ritz complex, and from the Vietory Ritz complex, we compute its persistent homology. Remember that persistent homology will track the connected component in that case because it's the zero-dimensional persistent homology. And for example, here it starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 connected component, and the connected component die when the radius increase. And when they die, then this bar stops. There is one bar that is always alive because it's the connected component that never die, but the other always die. Okay, I think this is known here in this seminar. Okay, then we extract topological feature from each simulation as follows. For each barcode that is composed by birth and death times, we compute its persistent entropy. The persistent entropy is the entropy of the probabilistic distribution obtaining from the length of the bars in the barcodes. This is the formula, okay? And in this example, persistent entropy is 2.7511. Alone, it doesn't, the meaning is nothing. But altogether, what we obtain is a persistent entropy time series. So this is, for example, one situation, one simulation step, okay? In time 278. And this is where the robot were located. And this is another one time 177, and this is where the robot were located, okay, here. And from each one, we obtain a persistent entropy. In the first one, 2.682, and in the second one, 2.78. Okay, so we put in a function, one variate function, and we obtain the persistent entropy time series. Okay, so okay. Then, when we have each time series, we obtain we can obtain from this time series statistical parameters. In this case, we use mean, median, standard deviation, and interquartile range. So we obtain a four-dimensional point for each time series. And then with this vector, we compute a dataset. In the dataset, each vector is labeled by +1 or -1. For example, +1 is safe, no collision. -1 is unsafe, there is a collision in this simulation run. Okay? And with this, we train a support vector machine with adjustable margin to learn the decision function separating safe and unsafe simulation. And this is what we obtained. This is some example of the data that we have, and you can see here that the data is very well separable. So green, for example, in this case A, green means no collision and red means collision. And we can see that they can, in most of the cases, they can be separated by an hyperplane. So it's a good approach to use support vector machine. Okay, and with this, with the classifier, we obtain the zones in the topological feature space because these are the result of the vectors. These are the vectors that we obtain from the time series that we obtain from the persistent entropy. And so this is a topological feature space. And with this, we can define safety rules saying where the simulation are safe. Okay, so this is an example of a rule, and we can know that if mean entropy is between these values and median entropy is between these values, then the method is safe. Okay, to obtain this rule, there are two different methods. That is the conformal prediction and probabilistic scaling. That is no the goal of this talk. But what we can see here is that with topological feature, we obtain less number of rules, anchors are rules, less number of rules than with the method used previously, and we obtain better, this is true positive, more true positive, and less false negative. So it's like it is an improvement of the previous method. Okay, and why? One thing that we can ask is why we think it works. Because here we can see that if the robots are along the space like especially distributed, they are alone, not making groups, then is less likely to have deadlocks. And this is related to a high persistent entropy. If they are forming group, then it's more likely that they, because they don't move in the same direction, that they will have a deadlock or will have collision. And this is related to low persistent entropy. And this is why we think it works well, because persistent entropy encode this kind of situation very well. Okay, so this is the good news, and there are always there are some cons. And one of the problem is that we obtain these rules and we can measure these rules after the simulation is done. So after the simulation, before the simulation, we cannot say if the simulation will be safe or not. This is a cons. But this is we need to work on this. But anyway, this is important for the explainability artificial intelligence. So if we know what happened, we can explain why a simulation rule have deadlock using this kind of rules. This is a good point for explainability. And this is why this is important in this topic. Okay? Okay. And the last one, the last line is characterized navigation behavior using partial matching and time series. This is like the most theoretical part, algebraic part, and the idea is the following. Sorry. So, with this very simple example, we can see why we think we use this approach. Imagine we have we can imagine these are for robots, for example, for points in the space. Imagine that X is a time step, simulation step, and Z is another simulation step. Okay? Here, the points are in the same. So there are 4 points if we forget about the labels. There are 4 points in the same place, but they are not the same robots. For example, this one is P1, but P1 now is here, in another place. And P2 is here, but P2 is moved to another place. So, except P4, all the other robots move to another place. But the place coincide with the previous places. This is like a coincidence, a lot coincidence. Okay? Okay, so if we compute deviatory Rips complex again, and we compute persistent homology, zero-dimensional persistent homology, for the blue points, we have these 3 bars, because we don't put the infinity bars. This is why we only have 3 bars. And for the red point, we have exactly the same 3 bars. And if we use, for example, to compare the 2 barcodes to see what happened in this situation, if we use Wasserton or bottleneck, we obtain that the distance is 0. So it's like the bottleneck distance doesn't notice that there is a change in this situation. But we designed a method to compute this the second matching. Okay, in the second matching, you can see that there is a blue, for example, the blue, a small blue bar in the bottom go to the big red bar on the top. Okay, and so on. And this matching is induced by the bijection, by this bijection, by bijection the labels, because the bijection is given by the movement of the robot. So it takes more sense to have this partial matching instead of the first one. Okay? And this is what I'm going to explain how to do. How to do in a stable way, in a robust way, and with theoretical guarantees. Okay. So in general, we have n agents or n points, n something. And we have another set with another n elements. And we have a variation. So x, y go to z, y. This is the elemental variation. We have non-negative functions. It could be distance, but it could be any similarity function. We don't need to have Euclidean distance. Okay? So only we need non-negative function. So we have the variation and this non-negative function to like similarity measures. And then with this, we can compute the persistent morphisms that go from the zero-dimensional persistent homology of the data set of the set X, and this is in fact the zero-dimensional persistent homology of the Vietory-Ries complex of X, and goes to the zero-dimensional persistent homology of the Vietory-Ries complex or of Z from X to Z. Okay? Okay. It is known that this persistent morphism is isomorphic to this expression. And this expression is very nice because from here we can obtain a partial matching. If we have this expression, we have a partial matching because this Ka mean the bar that die at value A. And this KB mean the bar that die at value B. And this is a persistent morphism, very simple, that go from Ka to Kb. So from this expression, we know how many, this number is how many bars that die at A goes or are matching are matched to bars that die at B. Okay? And these one are the ones that never are not matched in the second part of the summa. Okay? So if we have this expression, then we have the partial matching that we want, the partial matching induced by the persistent morphism. Okay? And for this, what we need? We need the persistent of the barcodes of the set X, the barcode of the set Z, together with these two numbers, R, A, B, and D, B minus. We know that they exist because it's proven in another paper, but there is not an easy way or a fast way to compute it in this paper. Okay. Okay, so the idea is not to compute the composition because this is very expensive and we need something that is fast. So what we do, we use block function. Block function was defined previously by our group, and the idea is the following. So we have, the input are persistent zero-dimensional persistent homology for X and zero-dimensional persistent homology for Z. And then we compute this expression. This expression is defined algebraically using vector spaces, and the vector spaces are computed using triplet merging trees. And with this algebraic expression, we can obtain this number. Okay, this is like this is a number relating A and B. Remember that A is the depth of one of the bar in X, and B is the depth of one of the bar in the persistent homology of Z. And we have this expression. I'm not going to be in the details of this expression because we need maybe another 1 hour more, but the idea is that it can be computed using matrix reduction. So it's easy to compute. Okay, and also these vector spaces are computing using triplet merge tree, and this is not very complicated to understand. The triplet merge trees So imagine we have this filtration, this sequence of simplicial complexes, okay, from which we compute the persistent homology. This is obtained, this filtration is obtained using Vietory Rips. And then the idea of merge trees is that we don't only save when a connected component die, but also we record also which one is the connected component that is merged to. So for example, connected component number 2 that start, this is number 2, okay? It starts here like alone, and then here is alone, and then here is joined to the connected component number 0. So it becomes connected component number 0 here, okay? And they are now connected component number 0. And for example, this one is always 1, 1, 1, 1 until here. And here it join connected component number 0 and become connected component number 0. So this is what triplet merge tree computes. Okay, so with this information, we put into this formula, and then we can obtain this number. And this number is like how many we obtain, how many bars that die at A can be matched with bars that die at B. And why is this? Because we proved that F is isomorphic to this expression. This expression is the same as before, but here, instead of having R, this value that we didn't know how to compute, we have this number that we know how to compute. And this number also we know because it's the multiplicity of the bar that die at B. The multiplicity is the number of bars that die at B minus a sum in which is involved this number that we know how to compute. Okay? And using this information, M and N, we can compute the matching that we wanted, not the matching that produced the bottleneck distance or the Wassermann distance. No, the matching induced by the bijection F. Okay? Okay. So using this, we propose, well, I didn't say here, but this formula, this one has a very nice property. For example, it's linear. If we have two persistent morphisms and we have the direct sum of this, then we can obtain immediately the new block function. So because we can obtain immediately this decomposition, okay, we didn't prove this stable. We prove it's stable the next thing. And there are, for example, another property is that this is always a partial matching. We obtain from here always a partial matching, well defined, and things like that. Okay, so from this partial matching, we propose to define a new distance, not the Wassermann distance, not the bottleneck distance, and this one we call the induced matching distance. And it's the distance that we obtain from the matching that we compute. Okay, so for example, if the bar that die at A is matched with a bar that die at B, then we compute the difference of these two values, and then summing all these all these values, we obtain the distance. Okay, and something very easy to check is that this distance bound the Wassermann distance, the Q Wassermann distance. Okay, because the Q Wassermann distance is defined as the optimum one, and this is not the optimum, it's one induced by F, but it's not almost never is the optimum. So this bound we have it. Okay? And we also have that this is a distance and it's stable. The most important, it is stable in this case. Okay, so this is an example of why we thought of applying block function in this kind of problem that is the robot fleet. This is a very simple example in which we have three robots. These two move with the same velocity, the first and the third, and the second, the one in the middle, is per moving with this robot more on the right. But after, I think, 50 simulation, it changed, okay? It's like it wait to the robot more on the left, okay? So what we do? We want to see if we can detect this variation, and then we compare the bottleneck of the first simulation, the first here in step 0 on time 0, and we compare it with, this is not 99, with T, with all of the other simulations, okay? So this is the result of comparing the first simulation to itself. And this is the result of comparing the first simulation to the simulation in number 20. And everything is 0 because if you see, they have the same, not here, but at the beginning, sorry, here. We have always the same configuration. This is why this is always 0. Okay. When we are more or less in the middle, here, okay, it's like the distance is increasing until here. Here, the Wasserton distance decrease until we have this situation. Why? Because this situation is exactly the same in topology, no, than the first one. But we know that it's not the same. And why? Because we have this variation, because we have the identification of the robot. And using the induced Wasserton distance, we can check that there is a change in the composition of the robot that the Wasserton distance cannot detect. Okay? Okay. So thinking of this, we say, okay, we are going to use then partial matching to detect behavior. We try to apply this methodology directly to the behaviors, and we didn't have nothing very interesting, so nothing that compared to basic statistic. So we changed and we consider that maybe we have to encode all the trajectory of each agent, okay? Sorry, all the simulation room of each agent in a time series, okay? Or better say, of the simulation route in a time series. Okay, so this is what we did. Okay, we have each agent has a trajectory along the simulation route, and each trajectory can be transformed into a CD, a six-dimensional time series. Why? Because in each time step, in each simulation step, we have each agent has 6 values. So if I go along all the simulation route, I have a time series in 6 dimensions. Okay, so we use this idea and then we compute an experiment with a corridor scenario. This is the data of the corridor. We have 10 agents, so we have 10 time series, okay? And 5 agents are driving left and 5 agents are driving right. And we apply to the 3 different behavior: orca, human life, and social force. Okay, we run 200 simulation with 900 steps for each behavior. So at the end, we have 10 agents with 200 simulation each. So we have 600, 6,000 time series. Okay. Then, to compare the time series, we thought using Euclidean distance, but Euclidean distance is not a good choice because, for example, we can have two time series that are the same. Only one is a displacement of the order, and the distance is very different. So, if we use this other other similarity measure, that is the dynamic time warping, you can see that we obtain in this case that the distance is zero. So dynamic time warping say that the distance between these two time series is zero, but the Euclidean distance say that it's not zero. And we thought that this is the good similarity. This is the good similarity measure because for us, these two trajectories are the same. Okay, then we giving a simulation rule, we apply the step, we compute the time series, and then for each time series, we compute the point cloud, and from the point cloud we compute the Vietory rift, and from the Vietory rift we compute the barcodes. Okay, and then we have and then we compute the distance. Okay, and this distance for each of the simulation steps, we have at the end, we have an induced machine signal for each simulation room. Okay, and then using this, we computed. This is the summarization of the computation of the matching signals in all the simulation that we did. If you remember, was 600. Okay, and this is the mean, and this is all the variability that we have. So we have nothing that we can separate. We cannot discriminate the three behaviors here, and neither with this efficacy and neither with the safety. Safety is measure just the collision, and safety measure the deadlock. But if we put the three together, and if we compute principal component, no, sorry, we computed here UMAP, then we obtain this promising result in which we can see that the three behaviors, one is blue, the other one is green, and the other one is red, are separated, are in different connected components. So we can separate and we can feed, for example, a support vector machine with this data. And this is the result that we obtain. This result with accepted an conferences, and we have to study more on this because we only check in one behavior. Sorry, we only check in one scenario, that is the corridor. We have to check in more scenario and see if we have the same good results or not. And finally, so the conclusions are that topology-based methods improve autonomous agent fleet in safety and behavior analysis, and with graph modulation, we reduce collision and deadlock. With persistent entropy, we create explainable safety regions to avoid collision and deadlock, and with matching diagrams, we obtain differentiation between behaviors. So we think this is a good way to study, and everything, all the details can be found in this paper that we plan to submit soon. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Gonzalez. First, please let's just unmute our mics and thank Professor Gonzalez. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask if anyone has any questions.
There is one, I think. Anu.
So I wanted to ask if you could give a bit more details on the explainable safety topology features on page 23. It seems like it's very important to be able to give safety features, and very interesting that topology can be related to this idea of creating safety
23
controls
years ago.
or
Mhm,
guarantees, I guess. Yeah.
mhm. Okay, so what is the question? Sorry.
I guess you explained this throughout the whole talk, but maybe what would be your kind of short explanation of the details of these explainable topological features? Like how do these create more safe
Okay.
environments? Because I guess
Okay.
one thing is to measure it, but then actually to use it. That's what I would
Yeah, yes.
probably want to understand a bit more.
Yeah. So the thing is that we don't mm, create a safe scenarios. We can explain why an scenario wasn't safe. Why with
Okay.
this parameter we obtain a not good scenario. So this is one problem that we have. This is why we it was accepted in the explainable artificial intelligence conference, because we have rules that explain why we have something that is not safe, for example. But the next step is to try to apply this topological measure before. So how to relate this topological measure with the parameters. This is we haven't done yet. We need to do it. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's a very interesting potential extension. Yeah.
yeah.
And I also had a question on page 34 when you were introducing the Wasserstein distance, I believe there. Um,
This one?
maybe the next one.
Okay. This one.
Yeah, that one. So, because there you're measuring just for H0, and I think a lot of the
Yeah.
um, the studies that came after this as well were only
Yeah.
for H0. So I guess H0 is the connected components, but
Yeah.
what is your expectation or maybe hope
Yeah.
for higher homotopy groups? I understand that these are always more expensive to compute, but
No, no, the
um,
problem is not the computation, so we can compute with the same, no problem. The thing is that we don't have the stability result and all the guarantees that we have with this in dimension zero. So
just for
stability
the
result
matchings.
we already have. Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, that we prove the stability with dimension zero. So we have some problems, I don't remember now which kind of problem, that is more difficult to prove in dimension greater than zero, and we are working on this. So this is why we use dimension zero, because we knew that it's stable, well defined, and everything works very well. The definition of the matching is works in any dimension, so we can put here any dimension, but we didn't prove all the good properties that we could prove in dimension zero, especially the stability. And this is why we couldn't use it in our experiment, because we didn't want to use something that we don't know if it is stable. We think it is, but we didn't prove. So we wanted to do things with theoretical guarantees.
Great.
Yeah,
No,
but it's
that's a great answer. I think that
I
explains.
agree. Yeah, but I agree with you that we need to move forward higher dimension. But it's very difficult if you want to prove everything theoretically. This is the problem.
Right. Although even without having the theoretical guarantees of the theory to back it up, one could still just look at the experiments. And I guess you have the data and you have the computation resources. So
Yeah,
that's something that at least I guess. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
And
But the
and
thing
I
is that
guess
yeah, not it's just that the thing is that our aim in this European project is to provide theoretical guarantees.
ah,
So our role is to provide theoretical guarantees. So the other partner do a lot of experiment, many, and we everything that we do should be with theoretical guarantees, because this is our
got
role.
it. I see. I
Okay.
understand. That's why this is more important for you in this
Yeah, this is one.
collaboration.
Yes. Mhm.
And I guess a final. I don't know if anyone else has a question from the people in the Zoom land. Oh, there's a question by Yanis from NYC. I guess I will read it, although you can also ask it yourself, Yanis. Why is the increase of dimensionality complicating things? Is it a combinatorial issue or a purely computational issue?
No, it's not computational, it's theoretically. It's,
Mm.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the problem because we use um, to prove the stability, we use interleaving constructions, and it was very complicated when we use a higher dimension. And the key, I remember, the key was that when we don't, when the bars start at any other bar and is not zero, so we can have intervals that are inside another interval. And then there is very complicated to manage this situation. So we need to use, so we could prove stability if we don't have this situation, if we don't have an interval inside another interval. But we cannot guarantee that we don't have this in our experiments. So it's not because computation, it's because theoretical guarantees. And we need to prove this, and we couldn't until now. Maybe you could, or you could help us.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions that anyone wants to pose at the moment? Well, if not, thank you very much again, Professor González Díaz. It's been a wonderful exploration of applications of TDA and persistence, and particularly persistent entropy, which I think might be underused. So this is a very good way to highlight how it can be very useful.